Welcome to Meeting the Inconceivable, a podcast exploring Zen koans, dreams, and the creative life produced by Pacific Zen Institute. Pacific Zen has a legacy of preserving and reimagining the koan tradition to meet our own times. With a lively community of artists, innovators, and seekers of all kinds that extends worldwide, our mission is to create a culture of transformation through meditation, koans, the arts, and conversations about the deepest matters. In this episode, Roshi John Tarrant tells a wondrous and humorous rendition of an old fairy tale, The Golden Bird. In it, a father implores his sons to catch whatever or whoever is stealing his golden apples each night, and a long journey unfolds in which only the youngest brother, the dumbling, is able to prevail. Drawing this into practice, Tarrant explores how it's never our most treasured or heroic attitudes that lead us through the gates of awakening. It's far more simple than that. Pairing the tale with Hakuin's praise song for meditation, Tarrant reminds listeners that with just one sitting, all your crimes are wiped away.
Hi everyone, welcome. Delightful to have you here. Delightful to be here. And the sound of the temple bell, the ancient sound. So all sounds are timeless, really. All sounds are ancient, but temple bell always has that feeling of going straight to my heart. Where are you now? Here. That's where we are, here. The bell tells us that as we enter it. All beings are Buddha by nature, just as water and ice are the same. Without water, there's no ice. Outside of beings, no Buddha. Just something to sit with while we're just sitting around at leisure. Sometimes I have a special theme and so on, but last week I was thinking about, I don't know, my mind just went to, next week, And Hakuin's face, and he's a great late medieval Japanese master who actually really systematized koan study and all, but he's famous for the all beings by nature are Buddha. You know what I'll do? I'll read it, or I'll chant it. All beings are Buddha by nature, just as water and ice are the same. Without water, there's no ice. Outside of beings, no Buddha. People miss what's in front of them and search far from home. It's sad, like standing in water and crying out in thirst, like a child from a rich family, struggling among the poor. I read into a great translation by, I think somebody from, I can't remember, maybe from a Tibetan lineage, who said, your daddy's rich. And your daddy's rich. And you're just wandering on the streets. You're sleeping under the freeways, like that. We cycle through heavens and hells because we keep setting out on the dark roads of ignorance. You know that. All you have to do is sit still for a minute and your mind steps out on the dark road of ignorance. I want this, or what if I had that? It's like, mind just thinks that's his job. Delusion, that's my work. We keep setting out on the dark roads of ignorance, dark road after dark road. When will we be free from birth and death? I mean, when will we be free from getting something and realizing that's not it and getting something else, Realizing that's not it and getting something else. And so he says, meditation. I have an answer, he says. Meditation can't be praised enough. And then he runs through the Buddhist qualities, the good effects of generosity and discipline. That's, meditate every day. It's good for you. generosity and discipline, prayer, mantras, things like that, self-reflection and practice have their source in meditation. With what you gain from just one sitting, all your crimes are wiped away. It's kind of nice. The thing about your karma doesn't exist when you're not obsessing about it. It's kind of pretty good. Well, I think it might be one of the first things you notice in meditation, and it is kind of miraculous. That's why it says, from what you gain from just one sitting, all your crimes are wiped away. If this way moves you the first time you hear it and you simply follow it, endless blessings come to you. He doesn't say, do a good job following it. He does, just get the donkey moving. It's like, eventually, if you turn the head a little bit, the donkey's job is the donkey's job to find the barn. And I think meditation's like that. It's better to do it than to even do it well and do it perfectly. And gradually, it teaches you how to do it. Even more, if you turn the light inward. This is a great old Chinese Linji thing. If you turn the light inward and witness your own nature, your nature is empty nature. You go beyond any doctrine. The gate opens, cause and effect are one. There's no two, no three. The formless form comes into form, going or returning, we're in the right place. Thinking thoughts without thought, singing and dancing are the voice of the way, the voice of the Dharma. The vast emptiness of deep meditation, the brightness of the bright moon of wisdom. Is anything missing from this moment? Nirvana appears before us. This very place is paradise, this very body, the Buddha. Sounds all right. Have a look at your hands and your shoulders. Have a look at your body. That body, not some other body. That one with whatever it's got going on with it. Usually the body's got something going on. Or at least mine certainly does. So yeah. And that's part of it. That's part of the Buddha. The Buddha nature is in that too. So I was thinking about Hakuin and sort of appreciating him. It's a very clear kind of statement, All beings have it, You have it, we have it, nobody doesn't have it. And we keep feeling, poverty-stricken and longing and burned by desire and sorrow and what we're missing out on. And yet we're rich, There's no moment in which we don't have that gold, So I was thinking about this, and then I thought this fairy tale came into my head about, there's a whole bunch of fairy tales actually, in which the hero or heroine is the peculiar odd child, the person who's the bane of the teachers in primary school, who doesn't seem to learn very quickly or things like that. The youngest, and in the fairy tale, the oldest, the one that came to me is the golden bird. And so I'll give you some bits of the golden bird. And so I was thinking about, the way Buddha nature is not held by a person who doesn't really think they need it or want it or isn't looking for it, who's the person who is very satisfied with their life and thinks they got everything and they've got it all together. Buddha nature is, it appears, the gate to it is modesty and cluelessness, we might say. Shunryu Suzuki had this great thing about, everybody wants to be the best horse, but the worst horse is very interesting. The best horse gets it immediately, but the worst horse, I don't know, maybe really gets it. Yeah, the worst horse. And to that quality. And so I thought I'd just read you a little bit of this fairy tale, which is a great old famous Grimm's tale. And in this case, Buddha nature is is a golden bird. So in the I don't know, all over the world, the Buddha nature is shown symbolically through images, and that's a great thing. One of the great things about India and the Far East, direct attention is brought to Buddha nature, and so that's, I think, why we ended up going there for koans and meditation and things. Roberto Calasso, the great Italian author, was asked why he went so much to Asia for his legends and myths and things. He said, well, if you want to talk directly about consciousness, that's a good place. Stories of the Buddha, things like that. Long ago, there was a king who had at the back of his castle a beautiful pleasure garden with fountains and greenery and orange trees. And also there stood a tree that bore golden apples. And one night, the gardener reported that one of the apples, golden apples, was missing. And the king ordered that a watch to be kept about the tree every night. The king had 3 sons, and he sent the eldest and most important to spend the whole night in the garden. And he watched till midnight, but then he fell asleep. And in the morning, another apple was gone. An apple was gone. The second son had to watch the following night. The same thing happened. He just not, how hard it is to stay awake when you know you have to. And he just was staying awake, and then he realized, oh, I'm dreaming, I'm awake. And when he woke up, another apple was gone. And so after some haggling, because the third son wasn't too bright and was slow at everything, he still wanted to have a try. So they had him watch. And he lay down under the tree to watch. And in the moonlight, he saw a bird flying towards him, and the feathers glittered like gold. And the bird perched upon the tree and had already pecked off an apple when the young man let an arrow fly at it. The bird flew away, but one of its golden feathers fluttered to the ground. The young man picked it up in wonder, and next morning he took it to the king. And the king was entranced by the feather, a golden feather, and he called his whole council together, but nobody had anything interesting to say about it. And he said, I want that bird. A greedy king. I want that bird. And so he sent the eldest wanted the privilege of finding it, even though he'd fallen asleep. And so he went off searching for the bird. And in a very short time, he came to the wood. And in a very short time, he came to a fox sitting at the edge of the wood. And he pointed his gun at the fox. And the fox said, don't shoot. I will give you good advice. I know what your business is. You want to find the golden bird. And I know how to do that. This evening, if you just keep going straight ahead, you'll come to a village, and there are 2 taverns stand facing each other. One is brightly lit, and there's merriment going on, dancing and feasting. It's a very appealing place. But the other one is kind of subdued and dark, and it looks kind of modest and shabby. That's the one you need to go to. That's part of your quest. And the oldest one said, that sounds like terrible advice. And he let an arrow fly. An arrow was a gun earlier, but now it's an arrow. An arrow fly at the fox. But the fox naturally just wriggled a bit and the arrow missed. And the sun went off. And he found the 2 taverns. And he said, what a fool I'd be to go to that shabby-looking place. And he went into the merry inn and started feasting. And somebody asked him to dance. And he had a wonderful time. And some weeks later, when the eldest son did not come back, the second son went off to find the golden bird. But the same thing happened to him. He had exactly the same kind of attitude towards life. And then when he got to the two inns, his brother called him and said, "Come on in, it's great in here." And so he went in and started feasting and dancing and really enjoying himself and forgetting, in a way, forgetting his quest completely. And so then the youngest son, just as with staying up all night, youngest son said, "I'd like to go on the quest, and well, you're kind of clueless, and plus I'm running out of sons." But the clueless one convinced everybody to let him go, so he went off. And in a very little time he came to a wood, and in a very little time he came to a fox sitting by the side of the road, and the fox said to him, "Please spare my life, and I know what you're looking for, what your quest that your quest is about the golden bird, and I can help. I have good counsel." And the youngest son said, I don't want to do you any harm. Be at ease, and you shall not repent of it," to the son, said the fox, and gave him the same counsel. And the youngest son said, "Very good." And the fox said, "But even more, sit on my tail." And then they went off like the wind together. The fox just launched, and they flew through the forest and flew over the fields, over stock and stone. And when they reached the village, the young man got down and, following the fox's advice, went straight to the poor-looking tavern. And he spent the night comfortably. And the next morning he came out, and the fox was there again. And the fox said, "Here's my advice. Go to a mean-looking... here's my advice. Let's go straight ahead until you come to a castle, and there'll be a great band of soldiers, but they will be asleep and snoring, and pass through them quietly and forward into the castle and through all the rooms till you come to one where there's a golden bird hanging in a wooden cage." That's sort of interesting. The golden bird is in a very simple cage. Like Zazen is a very simple cage for the golden bird. Near at hand, empty, there's a golden cage for royal occasions, but beware of taking the bird out of the simple cage and trying to put it in the fine one. If you do so, bad things will happen. So you can tell what's going to happen. and so then the fox stretched out his tail again, and the simple son sat down on the fox's tail and grabbed hold of him, and away they went over stock and stone. The wind whistled through their hair. And when the king's son reached the castle, he found everything as the fox had said. He walked quietly through the sleeping soldiers and into the room where the golden bird was hanging in a wooden cage. And then he thought it'd be sort of discourteous to the beautiful bird to keep it in that wooden cage. And so he opened the door and took the bird out and put it in the golden one. And the bird uttered a piercing cry, and the soldiers awakened, rushed in and seized the young man and put him in prison. And next morning he was brought before a judge and condemned to death. But the king said he would spare his life on one condition, that he should bring him the golden horse, whose paces were swifter than the wind, and that he should also receive the golden bird as a reward. Then he saw his old friend the fox, who was sitting by the roadside, thinking, do I need to mention you don't listen? and he's a little bit crestfallen, but he says, "Oh, well, now I've got to go and get a golden horse." And then he was sighing and a little downcast. "But be of courage," said the fox. "I will bring you through, will tell you how to get the golden horse. You must go straight on till you come to a castle where the horse stands in the stable. Before the stable door the grooms will be lying, but they will be asleep and snoring. You must go straight on till you find the golden horse, and quietly lead the horse out. One thing you must be careful of, take careful care to put the plain leather saddle and not the golden one on the horse. Otherwise, bad things will happen." And so the fox stretches out his tail, and the youngest son seats himself upon it, and away they go over stock and stone, and the wind whistles through their hair, and everything happened just as the fox had said. And he came to the stall where the golden horse was, and he looked in his eyes, and it seemed so beautiful, and he felt so close, and he thought, I must at least give you a golden saddle. And the horse made no comment. And the golden saddle looks so good on you. You look so, I don't know, regal. And no sooner did the horse feel the golden saddle touch him than he began to neigh and whinny. And all the grooms woke up and seized the king's son and threw him into prison. Next morning he was delivered to justice and condemned to death again. And the king promised his life and to bestow upon him the golden horse if he could convey the beautiful princess of the golden castle. With a heavy heart the king's son set out, but by great good fortune he soon met the fox. And the fox said, fancy meeting you here. And I ought now to leave you to your own ill luck, but I am sorry for you and will once more help you in your need. Your way lies straight up to the golden castle. You will arrive there in the evening and at night when all is quiet. The beautiful princess goes to the bath. And as she is entering the bathhouse, go up to her and give her a kiss, and then she will follow you and you can lead her away. But do not suffer her first to go and take leave of her parents. Otherwise, things will go very badly for you. And I'll do everything you say, says the young prince. The fox says, I see. And so the same thing happens. The fox stretched out his tail, the king's son seated himself upon it, and away they went over stock and stone. And the wind whistled in their hair, and he waited till midnight when all lay in deep sleep, and as the beautiful princess went to the bathing house, he went up to her and gave her a kiss, and she enjoyed the kiss and was interested in him, and promised to go with him, but said earnestly with tears, it would be inhuman not to let me say goodbye to the king and the queen, my parents. And he said, no, that's the one thing I can't do. However much I care for you and I'm really in love with you already after one kiss, the bad things will happen. But eventually she persuaded him, and she wept and wept and wept. And so he gave in, and no sooner had the princess reached her father's bedside than he and all who were in the castle woke up, and the young man was seized and thrown into prison. We said he was the slow learner in the family. So, and the king said to him, your life is forfeit, but you will find grace if you can level that mountain that lies before my windows, over which I'm not able to see. And if this is done within 8 days, you shall have my daughter for a bride. So the king's son set to work and dug and shoveled away. But on the 7th day he saw how little he had accomplished, and all his work was as nothing, and he fell into a great sadness and gave up hope. But on the evening of the 7th day, who should appear but the fox? And it said, I can't say that you deserve I should help you, just saying. However, if you lie down and go to sleep, I will do the work for you. And in the evening, and then the next morning when he awoke and looked out the windows, the mountains had disappeared. The young man hastened full of joy to the king and told him that his behest was fulfilled, and whether the king liked it or not, he had to keep his word and let his daughter go. So they both went away together. It was not long before the faithful fox came up to them. Well, you've got the best first, he said, but you must know that the golden horse belongs to the princess of the golden castle. How shall I get it? Asked the young man. I'm going to tell you, answered the fox. First go to the king who sent you to the golden castle and take to him the beautiful princess. There will be great rejoicing. He will willingly give you the golden horse, and they will lead you out to him. Then mount him, without delay and stretch out your hand to each of them to take leave, and last of all to the princess. And when you have her by the hand, swing her up on the horse behind you, and off you go. And nobody will be able to overtake you because you're on the golden horse. And for the horse goes faster, swifter than the wind. And so it was all happily done. And the king's son carried off the beautiful princess on the golden horse. The fox did not stay behind, who evidently runs as fast as the horse. And he said, "Now I'll help you get the golden bird. When you draw near the castle where the bird is, let the lady alight, and I will take her under my care. Then you must ride the golden horse into the castle yard. And there will be great rejoicing to see it, and they'll bring out to you the golden bird. As soon as you have the cage in your hand, you must start off back to us, and you shall carry the lady away." The plan was successfully carried out. And when the young man returned with the treasure, the fox said, "Now what will you give me for my reward? What would you desire?" asked the young man. "When you are passing through the wood," said the fox, "I desire that you should slay me and cut my head and feet off." "That would be a strange sign of gratitude," said the king's son. "I could not possibly do such a thing." "Then," said the fox, "if you will not do it, I must leave you forever. But before I go, let me give you some good advice. Beware of two things. Do not buy meat from the gallows, and do not sit at the side of the river." With that, the fox ran into the wood. The young man thought to himself, "That's a wonderful animal, with most singular ideas. How should anyone buy meat from the gallows? I'm sure I have no particular fancy for sitting by the river." So he rode on with the beautiful princess, and their way led them through the village where his two brothers had stayed. There they heard a great outcry and noise, and when he asked what it was, they told him that two men were going to be hanged. When he drew near, they saw it was his two brothers who had done all sorts of evil tricks and had wasted all their money. He asked if there were any means of setting them free. "Oh yes, if you will buy them off," answered the people. "Why should you spend your money redeeming such worthless men?" But he persisted in doing so, and when they were let go, they all went on their journey together. After a while, they came to a wood where the fox had met them first. It seemed so cool and sheltered from the sun's burning rays. The brothers said, "Let's sit down here for a little by the river and eat and drink and refresh ourselves." The young man consented, quite forgetting the fox's warning, and seated himself by the brookside innocently. But the two brothers thrust him back into the little river, seized the princess, the horse, and the bird, and went home to their father triumphantly. "Is this not the golden bird that we bring?" they said, "and we also have the golden horse and the princess of the golden castle." There was great rejoicing in the royal castle, but the horse did not feed, the birds did not chirp, and the princess sat still and wept. The youngest brother, however, had not perished. The river actually cast him up on its bank, and so he got help that way too. And then the faithful fox came along and reproached him for having forgotten his advice. "But I cannot forsake you all the same," he said. "I'll help you back again into your life." So he told the young man to grasp his tail and hold on fast, and they went off towards the castle. And the fox said, "Your brothers, not being certain of your death, have surrounded the wood with sentinels, who are to put you to death if you let yourself be seen." A poor beggar man was sitting by the path, and the young man changed clothes with him and went in that disguise into the king's courtyard. Nobody knew him, but the bird began to chirp, the horse began to eat, and the beautiful princess stopped weeping. "What does all this mean?" said the king, astonished. The princess answered, "I cannot tell, except that I was sad, and now I am joyful. It is to me as if my rightful bridegroom has returned." And she told him all that happened, although the two brothers had threatened to put her to death if she said anything. The king ordered every person who was in the castle to be brought before him, And with the rest came the young man like a beggar in his wretched garments. But the princess knew him and greeted him well, falling on his neck and kissing him. The wicked brothers were seized and put to death, and the youngest brother was married to the princess and succeeded the inheritance of his father. But what about the poor fox? Long afterwards, when the king's son was going through the woods, the fox met him and said, "Now you have everything you can wish for, but my misfortunes never come to an end. As a reward, I earnestly pray you to kill me, cut off my head and feet." So at last, with heavy heart and tears, the king's youngest son consented, and as soon as it was done, the fox changed into a man, a very handsome prince, who was the brother of the beautiful princess. And he was set free from a spell that had bound him for a long, long time. And then there was nothing lacking for their happiness, for they're all together. And that is the end. So it's a great story, isn't it? And to that motif about you have to make the sacrifice. In the Irish story of Coneda, the pony who's so helpful to him, it's a pony in that case, asks him to kill him, and he turns out to be his brother who was under a spell. And so that was my thought about, Buddha nature is it's not that it's disguised, but we can't see it. And then there are all these obstacles, and then we get a glimpse of it. It's the golden bird, and whatever it is. But there are many obstacles, like our desires for ease and comfort and carousing or whatever it was. But you can tell the older brothers, they were just like so self-indulgent. Nothing good was going to happen with them. And greedy. But even the youngest who worked hard, it was like that. He felt like, but that bird will be unhappy if I don't give it a nice cage. And so it was like that. I suppose the thing is, there's a magic to Buddha nature appears in all sorts of forms all over the world, but there's something just appears as Buddha nature, And you'll often see in Chinese and Japanese paintings, you'll see the dragon holding a pearl. That's the Buddha nature, like that. So what I want to do now, all beings have Buddha nature, Let's just sit with that a little bit and let the story percolate and see how it does. See what touches you about it. Okay. All beings are Buddha by nature. Just as water and ice are the same. Without water, there's no ice. Outside of beings, no Buddha. With what you gain from just one sitting, all your crimes are wiped away. Is anything missing from this moment? Anything missing? The old famous old saying that I think it was Manjushri was asked to go and find something that is not medicine. Anything missing from this moment. This very place is paradise, says Hakuin. He says the lotus land, paradise. This very body, the Buddha, just accept the humble cage and the humble saddle and be happy to be the foolish younger child. As soon as you notice anything you notice, it's here. The thing I was looking for is here. And as soon as you feel like, God, I thought it was here and it's not, enter there. Enter in the reaching, enter in the feeling that it's not here, and you'll find, oh, how alive that is. Enter your sorrow, and you'll find, oh, the golden bird is there too. Thing you're embarrassed by, all those things, it's there. It's nowhere else but here. I have a friend who's disappointed a lot and actually kind of gets it in a way, but is disappointed a lot and forgets it every time she's disappointed. And it's kind of a wonderful thing in a way. each disappointment is an opportunity to change everything. Enter here. And, the karma is an amazing thing, and it just sort of comes to us and comes to us. And over again, we get disappointed until we can enter there, until we can find that is where my delight is. Go to the shabby inn, that sort of thing. So, and so a lot of Zazen is about, if we kind of fall out of everything we're looking for and fall out of everything we're reaching for, it's here. This very place is paradise. I remember hearing this the first time and being in a meditation hall and thinking, surely that cannot be true. The last goddamn place I can imagine it. I could know my whole being is anchored in wanting to get somewhere else. But as we go, at some stage in life, we realize, oh, I can't get somewhere else. I have to, live through my here. The old Celtic term is dree or weird, live through your fate, And it's kind of not so bad, actually. Who knew? It's never what we expected. But I thought I would be X, but actually I'm not. I'm something else, much more interesting. I have a lot of other things to say, but I want to say I've been reading Pico Ayer's Half Known Life, and he has it starts out looking for people's ideas of paradise, and he said to me, wait till you see where it ends up. And I immediately knew it was going to end up in Varanasi with the burning bodies. It's like, how you know. And indeed, but it's very touching. And he happened to take with him Emily Dickinson when he was in Varanasi, I guess. And she said, we both believe and disbelieve 100 times an hour. And so Buddha nature always comes with both. Isn't that true? Like we believe and disbelieve 100 times an hour. And Buddha nature, you think, I've got it. There it is. And maybe it's not. And so trusting is really entering the Dharma is understanding the movements like that believing and disbelieving. And she also said, wonder is not precisely knowing and not precisely knowing not. So not choosing it is or it isn't. Not choosing it, that's a Dongshan line. Not choosing it is or it isn't. Can you be at peace with this? And I found I was lucky. I thought, Walt Whitman's a great person for bits, flashes of Buddha nature, the whole ecstatic flash of things. So, and then a poet called Mark Doty, who's sort of really tremendous writer, but I actually know very little about or nothing about till now. He had wrote a book on Walt Whitman. I thought, well, I'll open that and I'll get something about Buddha nature. And I kind of did, but I'll read you what I got. So I used to like to go to a sex club on the Lower East Side. A place now closed, health department, things like that. Beyond a nearly invisible doorway, there was a bouncer inside the door, a flirting man who loved jazz music, then an attendant in the ticket booth right through there. And then a sort of living room where you could check your clothes with the two attendant angels, one black and startlingly shapely, one blonde and ethereally thin. They were loving, kind, and funny boys. They looked at the goings-on before them with a sly combination of blessing and good humor, which is just what you want in an angel. Then, beyond a black vinyl curtain that shredded so that you could put it dramatically with a swipe of the hand, were two floors with a stripped industrial look to them. A certain rawness, bare and brick and cement and structures of wood and metal in which to wander or hide, all very plain the first year I went there, and later redone with branches and dried leaves everywhere, as if an autumn forest had sprouted in the ruins of the factory. Sometimes it was a palace of pleasure, sometimes a hall of doom. Sometimes when you thought you wanted to be there, you discover you just couldn't get into the swing of it. Sometimes you weren't sure you wanted to go, and it was marvelous. Sometimes it was a palace of pleasure, and sometimes a hall of doom. So I thought, well, when I thought, obviously I've led a sheltered life. When I ended up Mark Daly and Walt Whitman looking for some mystic apprehension of, but it is a mystic apprehension. It's in the midst of desire, in the midst of also the way desire fails us and that kind of thing. It's just, so I thought you need to know that. And another thing here I want to read that's a poem that another friend of mine just sent me. So we're dealing with a lot of serendipity today. I suppose I want to say that it's the thing about the Mark Doty and the Sex Club. It's about Buddha nature. There's nowhere where Buddha nature isn't. And Hakuin was very, very strong on that. Ikkyu was very strong on that piece. He was an illegitimate son of an emperor and sort of difficult personality as well, but a kind of genius. And he was a monk who was always accompanied by his lover, things like that. So this seems something about, the whole world, the unruly world of the psyche is here projected into the world here. This is another friend just sent me Infosnade, which a friend seems to send me like regularly once a year. Anyway, she sent me this from Edinburgh, I think. This darksome burn, horseback brown, his rollick highroad roaring down. A burn is a brook, creek, something rolling down. In coop and in comb the fleece of his foam flutes in low to the lake falls home. A wind-puffed bonnet of foreign froth turns and twindles over the broth of a pool, over the broth of a pool so pitch black, fell frowning, the fells of a wild country like that, fell frowning, it rounds and rounds, despair to drowning. Dagged with dew, dappled with dew, are the groins of the braes that the brook treads through, wiry heath-pecks, flitches of fern, and the bead bonny ash that sits over the burn. What could the world be once bereft of wet and wildness? Let them be left, oh, let them be left, wildness and wet. Long live the weeds in the wilderness yet. Let them be left, oh, let them be left, wildness and wet. Long live the weeds in the wilderness yet. So that wilderness is part of the thing, don't raise delusive thoughts. When you do, don't get rid of them. The wilderness is where the wilderness inside and the wilderness outside is. It's right. You're going to find things there. You're going to in fact, that is where there is. Tess, do you want to have anything you want to say? Foxes and youngest children, golden birds.
The first thing is what you said about the sex club, that like how anything can be like that. Like I was thinking about entering the temple during session or even just coming to sit. And sometimes you think you're feeling it and then all of a sudden it's flat. And sometimes you think, oh, I have to be here. And then all of a sudden you discover something, and how just that, I guess in a way, that simpleton. I've heard the idiot brother sometimes be called dumbling in some of those stories. And to have the dumbling attitude to enter whatever it is and just discover. The thing I was really loving about the story today, such a great story, but how the mistakes, he has this great sort of Zen master of a fox or something who's saying, whatever you do, just try not to, and of course that's what he does. But how each of those mistakes somehow became an essential opening to the next part of the story. And also how what I was thinking about just my own life and how what feels at the time, you end up in prison again, or you've made the wrong choice, or you somehow end up way down the road and have no idea where you're going. And yet, the more we get into the story, it's like each of those golden creatures becomes essential to the way back to how things go. And so, just that knitting back and forth of mistakes and then the essential nature of having that mistake happen. I was just thinking so many times in my own life how I'd end up feeling that way. And as my life continues along, it's like each of those things has come to serve. Each job that I thought was a horrible, I'm stuck in this startup and I'm going to die. And yet that ended up really helping me later to understand something, or something that I thought was completely a wrong turn, or, oh God, my friends, think I'm embarrassed to be in this relationship still, and yet I learned something that came to serve. And so just that I guess in a way it's sort of the Lin Ji thing of trust the light that's always working inside you. That seems like a little bit the golden bird, that it's always there, and it always somehow belongs to the part of us that has a good heart and isn't trying to just get something or use something, or I don't know. He has a good heart, and then he has to kind of cultivate wisdom, which seems fitting.
That's great. Thank you. Well, it's like Guan Yin when she went to hell. It wasn't hell for her. Yeah. And everybody else started noticing it wasn't. They started to get happy, and the chief demons asked her to leave because hell was not really being hell anymore. And I think that's in our psyches, where I should be this way, I should be that way, what's wrong with me? John Joseph, you want to say anything?
Yes, what she said. He, I too was impressed by the arc of his screw ups, in a sense, with the bird and the horse and the princess, and how important it was for him to screw up if he's to go to the next stage. And the screw ups are such an integral part of him. And you quoted Hakuin, not one thing, or, well, this very place is the lotus land, this very body, the Buddha, and I see that also in my own life, with my relationships, partner relationships, my teacher relationships, my peer relationships, and my sibling, where, things are not going well. And somehow, and at that time, perhaps in that moment, it doesn't feel so good, how kind of important it is for that to be part of the whole arc, of my own life, and to realize that is, so that's a wonderful thing.
That's great. Thanks. Allison, do you want to have anything you want to say?
Well, I was thinking about the golden bird too, and how in the beginning of the story, there's a kind of naive innocence about the situation, that everyone's actual nature is in some way not called into question. Everything is just sort of fixed but hidden. And then the way the karmic cycle begins, where I was also struck by the repetitive nature of the problem, and the problem is set up in the exact same structure, but with different things to gain or to lose. And it's just like that's one of the indications that it's my karma being played out, is a sense of repetition. And I just found that part both incredibly frustrating and also incredibly charming, but at the same time. And then, but primarily I was struck by the idea of sacrifice, that the karma stays in play until the sacrifice is offered. And I was thinking about my own karma and also other people's karma that I work with, as students, and how the sacrifice is giving up my fixed view of who's right and who's wrong. And I see that in my own, particularly my families. I've spent some time with my family and my mother and my siblings in the last couple of weeks. And in order for the karma to be set free and all of the treasures to appear, is I have to let go of being right. And that's like the most most difficult sacrifice. Even just talking about it, I feel like, oh, that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. That thing about it's the mistake, the necessity of the mistakes that take him on, the fact that he screwed up, got him onto the horse, which then he screwed up again, that got him onto the princess. And then he screwed up again. There was absolutely no excuse for that. And, but you see the different ways we're caught, they're more sophisticated. The ways he gets caught are a little bit more sophisticated. And, or at least the last one. And then just the fox has to just, well, I'll do it for you. It's like he's sowing the seeds when the ants come and sow the seeds first. Sometimes the vastness of the universe has got to help you because you are too clueless.
Well, and also every time he makes a mistake, what is to be the world enlarges. What is possible to gain becomes larger and larger, which I think is actually kind of a marvelous aspect of the story, that our karma enlarges both the trouble and what's possible.
It's also true that you need some, the discipline of Zazen, I can't be praised enough, as Hakuin said. That's he does listen to the fox, and he does go into the modest, Minka or whatever, the modest hotel near the temple sort of thing. He doesn't think of himself as special or entitled. And that's a really significant thing, I think. And then he gets all deluded and crazy, but at least he's still listening to the fox, and I think that's an important thing. And then the last thing he won't do is really interesting. He won't make the sacrifice. He won't sacrifice the fox when the fox asks him to, And that's a profound moment that occurs in a lot of stories where you have to give up something, or, in Zen there's a koan about killing the cat, that you have to, something has to die for us to, in a way, get free, And then, of course, the fox becomes his friend and his brother-in-law or whatever it is. And nice work when you get it, So, yeah. Go to the right hotel for the night. Listen to the fox. And then you'll get rich inwardly beyond your dreams. And then everything will be good wherever you go, Pico Aya, when he's talking about Varanasi, there's something touching about him, because even though he's in some sense Indian, he's really British in many other senses. And so he always talks about what a profound experience is, and also the other side, his guide says, tomorrow the mist will lift and the whole season will have changed. And it does. And it sounds almost like he has magical powers. And he says, and now it will stay changed. And the next day the fog's back in again. And Pico always reports that, because without deprecating the experience, that we're often wrong, and it's not a bad thing, Or Mark Doty, who's a writer, I just didn't, I knew about but haven't really read, and his whole thing of sometimes the sex club was wonderful and sometimes it felt like doom. And so I think somehow in Sesshin, the whole thing about sometimes we feel doomed. We feel like, what am I doing here? The well-known guy who used to, at another Zendo, he did every Sesshin, and about day 4 would go pack all his gear, leave Sesshin, go and sit in his car for a couple of hours, and then come back in, unpack it, and get back to Sesshin. He just couldn't. That was just part of Sesshin for him. He just couldn't. He couldn't do it any other way, which I think is rather wonderful. I was glad, hearing that story, I was glad he didn't try to improve himself. This very place, this very body, the Buddha. There's another way to understand Buddha nature is, it's that sound. When you look at the trees and you hear a sound, it's that sound, You look at the grass and everything. Sometimes you just look at the grass and everything's alive, Look in someone's face and they're alive. Other times, you're not up for that. and that's alive, So that's the thing. That's alive. The expectations of desire and fulfillment are just too much sometimes. So, but you always have that. If you turn the light inward, as Hakuin said, and witness your own nature, and then you find your own nature is very floaty, and there's nothing really to stand on, and you have to accept that. And when you're not fighting against that, it's magnificent. The whole universe.
To support these episodes or learn more about upcoming programs and retreats at Pacific Zen Institute, visit us at pacificzen.org. You'll find details on John Tarrant's Sunday talks, our Open Temple morning meditation, and our Zen Luminary series featuring intimate conversations with scholars, poets, and teachers of Koan Zen. Thanks for listening.